Okay, Hakari fans, I need y'all to hear me out. Thank you to our fellow patrons, Redwolf 4765, Midnight Gemlord, and Sean. And another thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Redwolf 4765. And a hefty thank you to our $10 patron, Robbie Uchiha. And another very big thank you to our $25 patron, Alex Ice Rose. Another very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. Now, we're on this breakdown / discussion on Hakari's biggest weakness as a warrior within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. Please remember to leave your own thoughts on what Hakari's weakness could be in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also hit that little notification bell to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also I do have a Patreon below you can support me for as low as $1 who get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up guys, all about here, and here we are to talk about Hakari Kenji's fattest, heftiest, juiciest, girthiest, whatever adjective you would like to use, weakness as a warrior within the ever-complex world of JJK, and all that entails. So, Hakari is an extremely powerful character. No matter whether or not you want to take the Yuta statement at face value, or if you disagree with it, or you fall somewhere in between, Hakari is up there in terms of raw power when it comes to our JJK cast. You don't give a man a literal infinite amount of the energy that your power system provides and expect them to be fodder. And Hakari, he has an infinite amount of what the cursed energy system is, and bada bing bada boom, he's extremely powerful for that. But naturally, due to Hakari being extremely powerful and there already being a ton of debates about him, I started writing some Hakari battles. You know, I'm cooking Hakari versus Yuta, I'm cooking Hakari versus Kenjaku, I'm cooking Hakari versus a couple individuals, you know what I'm saying? But like, I sat back and I really thought about it. And I realized, like, a hefty weakness, not saying that he may lose those fights or win those fights, we'll talk about those in their own videos, but a hefty weakness that Hakari has is that, he's really basic. Like, I know this is weird to think about, but he is really basic. What can Hakari do? Like, think about it for a second. What can Hakari actually do in a fight? I can answer that for you. He can hit things. And he can hit them real hard. And that's about it. Like, think about it. When you think of JJK and curse techniques, what comes to mind? What kind of ideas start flowing through your head when you think about JJK in terms of its abilities and their relative complexity compared to other series? Would you put it around like a Dragon Ball level where, you know, Ki lets you hit things harder and lets you send out big old blasts? Or would you put it up there closer to the Hunter x Hunter level where you literally need like a whole textbook to understand the power system? Me personally, I put JJK somewhere in between, like notably leaning more towards Hunter x Hunter than it's leaning towards Ki, despite JJK having a lot of Ki-esque aspects in terms of its power system. And due to that, a lot of characters and their abilities are really complex, especially the high tiers. Think about some of the high tiers in JJK. Think about Kenjaku and the 15 different abilities he has. Think about Gojo, and just explaining one of his abilities, or the lack of explanation of one of his abilities, because Gege literally got, what, a mathematician and another mathematician to try and come and explain how infinity works, and they said he actually made it wrong, but it's still not exactly wrong. It's very complicated on that front, for that's just one part of the Limitless. Then you have the rest of the Limitless, which is super duper uber juper complicated. Then you have Sukuna's techniques, which while seem simple, can go super in depth on how crazy they can be. Even the 10 Shadows technique, despite being really simple, oh, it's just summoning monsters. You have one member of it, aka Maharaga, who has a whole bunch of discussion around him because of how to, well, for lack of a better term, his adaptation is really, really dumb and stupid and could mean a whole bunch of things in a whole bunch of different contexts, and it's really matchup dependent. Like, a lot of things within JJK are relatively complex, and thusly, it leaves Hakari, outside of just like trying to explain his domain, relatively simple. Like, Hakari's whole kit is I domain on you and then I punch you. So if punching doesn't work, what does Hakari do to win? Like, think about it. Let's go to another character who is relatively simple but has a bit of complexity to him. Yuta Okotsu. Yuta can definitely try to punch you. He can definitely punch you real good, but he does have other options once he gets Rika on his finger. Obviously, you're running the 2v1. Obviously, you got stuff like Cursed Speech. You got stuff like Sky Manipulation. You got things like Drew Shikigami technique. Yuta has multiple ways to really like get around you and work with you. If you're tanky, he has ways that he can work around your tankiness as long as he plays your cards right or plays his cards right. Look at what he did to Ryu, an extremely tanky, extremely powerful dude who he managed to work around using other techniques and the fact that it was a free-for-all. Yuta has other ways he can hit you. Gojo Satoru, once again, if he needs to punch you, he can punch you. And he can punch you real good, but that's not the only thing he can do. He obviously has red, blue, purple, his domain. He has a lot of extra stuff in his back pocket that he can use that allows him to do a little bit more than just punch in the face real good. Same thing with Kenjaku. Yeah, Kenjaku can punch you in the face really, really well. We even see in his major battle against Choso and Yuki, he is very good at punching people in the face. And doing it to a very high degree and doing it very hard. But regardless, he has other things in his kit. The infinite amount of cursed spirits that he may have in his back pocket, and on top of just his own innate techniques, like the gravity technique that he got from Kaori. That's another ability that he just happens to have that's really, really good and also really, really hacked out and allows him different things like his domain expansion, which is based on the gravity technique. He has other ways to get through you. Heck, even someone like Kashimo, Hakari's main opponent, really, really good at punching people. In fact, arguably like the best person at punching people in the verse outside of like Gojo, Sukuna, and Kenjaku. And even still, he has other things he can do other than punching you, even without his curse technique. His whole lightning manipulation and stuff like that through the curse energy trait that he has is really, really good. It allows him to make up for a fact where even if he can't hit you or damage you all too much with his basic attacks, he's building up towards something. He's cooking something just a little bit. And when he finishes up in the kitchen and he serves you that meal, it's a lightning bolt to either your head, your gut, your arm, any part of you that's tearing through you because it's literally undodgeable, which is very, very good. Very, very solid. That's another way that Kashimo can work around not being able to damage you with just a good old punchy kicky. And the thing with Hakari is that he doesn't have anything like that. Like, legitimately. That's one of Hakari's biggest issues when you put him up against other people within the verse in terms of matchups. If he cannot punch you, Hakari loses. Like, legitimately. Like, if he can't hit you, or he can't do enough damage to you in quick enough succession with his punches, then he usually loses. Like, realize, Hakari was not going to beat Kashimo if they fought anywhere else. If Kashimo was not forced to expel all of his cursed energy within the water, then Hakari would have legitimately lost. Because you can even see it. After their battle, Kashimo has like a couple marks on him. And sure, I agree. Hakari was not trying to execute Kashimo, while Kashimo was definitely trying to execute Hakari. Hey, that's where you get one of the hardest lines in the series. Turn up the volume, it's a funeral for the living, if you know what I'm talking about. But still, the fact that Hakari, when seemingly enough trying to subdue Kashimo, could not subdue Kashimo with the good old punchy, Hakari was left with nothing other than, yeah, let me throw him in the water. Because, like, hopefully his curse energy trait works out like that. You throw them in Sendai, you throw them in Tokyo, you throw them anywhere else without water, and then bada bing, bada boom, Hakari is gonna lose that fight, because eventually Kashimo's gonna be like, well, shoot, I'll just take his arm off. Because he even came to that conclusion when under the water, which is only after, what, 2-3 rounds? So Hakari's kind of stuck out of luck in that case. And that's not even talking about base Hakari. If you can beat base Hakari, then he's stuck out of luck. Like, legitimately, not only does he lack any sort of diversity in his strongest state, but base Hakari, that domain, if he doesn't automatically or come at you with the roll, he's kind of in a tough spot, even with his high battle IQ. Because the thing is, the same issue that he has in Jackpot is ever present in base. And now, notably, we do know that he does have a little bit of something that we just never see him use against Kashimo, because Kashimo is just that guy. And that is the doors. Hypothetically, he may have the balls with him too. That's so wrong to say. But he may have those too, but we never see him use them outside of his domain, except for the one time he used them against Yuji. And I think that's mainly because they just aren't strong enough. Like, door is just another fancy way to hit people. And even then, most doors would probably shatter against high enough tier people. So even though he's amped on infinite curse energy, he never once pulled out a door against Kashimo. So Hakari's like lack of diversity really does him in. Notably, he's still an extremely powerful character, but like, he's not as powerful as he could be. If he had like one hacks, then maybe we could slide him higher. But like, what exactly is he supposed to do if he can't just beat you down? Like, really think about it. If he cannot beat you down for one reason or another, what is he exactly supposed to do? Bro has no hacks, negative hacks. Like, legitimately, if we were to remove power from it and just analyze characters on like a hacks front, the only character who would have less hacks than Hakari is like Maki and Toji. Even then, no, because they have precog. I was about to say, if you take away their weapons, Maki and Toji, but no, they have precog. That's still pretty darn good. That's fantastic, in fact. So, like, I can't even give them that. And they can just, like, see souls and stuff like that. That's better than anything Hakari has. I would say Yuji, maybe, but Divergent Fist is kind of goated. And, like, I'm not sure if Yuji still has, like, the soul attacking thing, but Yuji still, if he does, he still attacks your soul, which is Hakari. Hakari can't do that. So, like, Hakari may be, like, lowest in the entire verse when it comes to, like, sheer hacks versatility. Or versatility in general. Like, it's wild to say this, but, like, removing power from it, Momo is more hacks than Hakari. Because at least she can fly. Hakari can't fly. Hakari can't fly. And Momo can hit things, too. Like, that's the thing. The only thing that Hakari has that makes him good is his raw stats. But even his raw stats can kind of be negated. Because unfortunately, the main thing he gets with infinite RCT is just bulk. And even then, not really. He gets like regen bulk. He doesn't even have like genuine bulk. Like someone like Yuta has both regen bulk and genuine bulk. At least according to our one fight with Hakari against Kashimo, like, he is still pretty bulky, don't get me wrong, but a lightning bolt can do him in. A bolt can do him in. Speaking of bulk versus bolt, bolt always wins when it comes to a battle between the two. Well, that's kind of rough for Hakari. That's really, really rough. Because, unfortunately, the way that output works within JJK, which is the output of, like, how much force and energy you can output at once, it's inherent. Like, you are born with a certain level of output, and that's it. You cannot raise that. So, in spite of Hakari having infinite cursed energy and punching Kashimo in the face a whole bunch of times, Kashimo gets up right after their fight and is like, I mean, I was light. And like, no, Kashimo doesn't have RCT. He doesn't have any like healing or anything like that, or at least none confirmed at this point. So Kashimo literally lasted like 2 whole rounds with Hakari and was about to go for a third, no problem at all, except he got thrown into the water. So Hakari's output isn't necessarily that crazy. If he could have one-shot Kashimo, he would have one-shot Kashimo, but he couldn't. So not only does Hakari only have one way to beat you, which is literally like beating you, like straight up throwing hands with you, but also his output ain't all that. Like, I'm not saying it's average or anything. I'm not saying like Itadori or even Yuta or anyone like that has like better output than him, but I'd say he has lower output than Kashimo. I'd say he has, well, maybe not output, because I don't know, he was low-key he still was kind of dogging on Kashimo, and Kashimo wasn't doing much damage to Infinite Jackpot Hakari, but still, I'd say he has lower output than Ryu, lower output than Sukuna, lower output than Goat. But then again, these are like top tier characters. I'm not sure about Kenny. Kenny's gonna be weird. But still, like, that fact that Hakari not only doesn't have any hacks at all to beat you, like anything, if he cannot hit you with hands and the hands do their darn thing, he has nothing else. But even his hands aren't like crazy. They aren't like top tier, top 1 in the verse. They may like, can you argue? Like, you can make an argument they're like top 5, because who's above? Like Gojo, Sukuna, Yuki. Ooh, Yuki's up there. You could argue through damaging Sukuna, Yorozu's up there, and then you would need like a 5th, which you may be able to argue like fully manifested Rika, because she's able to like damage Ryu and stuff like that. And you can argue that there are people with just generally higher ways or AP. Like Yuta with a thin ice missile should be hitting harder than Hakari, because like, you know, it's striking space. Same thing with Uro, and obviously, Ryu too. So, there's a couple people that are going to be above Hakari in output. So not only does he not have any sort of fancy hacks, but he doesn't even have like top 5 output in the verse. Maybe not even top 6 if you want to include fully manifested Rika, but that's a debate. I can completely understand that debate, because, you know, infinite versus infinite. But like, that lack of diversity and that lack of hacks is really, really bad for Hakari. But, you know, I'm not one here to just be like, oh, Hakari, he doesn't have any hacks. Oh, he can only throw hands. Oh, base Hakari is fodder. He's not fodder. He's very, very powerful. He's like very, very, like, super duper high in a grade 1, like supreme grade 1 tier. You don't just dog on Demon God Yuji like that. Like, that's crazy. But still, I'm not here to just clown on Hakari. I'm here to offer a solution. What could we do? What could we add to Hakari's kit, Hakari's moveset, that could make him a bit more viable in them top tier discussions? What could we add to truly put him up there with the Yuki Sakumos, with the Yuta Okotsus, with the Gojos, the Sakun? Okay, maybe not that high, but still high enough that he's not like, unfortunately, just like walled out by someone bulky enough. How can we do it? There are a couple things I've been thinking of, because the big issue is like, well, what hacks do you give Hakari considering his whole thing is gambling? Like, how can you really do that? His whole domain is centered around gambling. The doors and the balls, the big heavy ball, like they're all surrounded around gambling already. Like, what could you really add to Hakari to really fit within that gambling motif? And notably, I don't have anything specific because I don't gamble. Like, legitimately, I have no like gambling experience myself because I am afraid. So I can't necessarily add anything specifically from like the pachinko machine setup that Hakari has, but I do have an idea that can play into the whole idea of Hakari's heavy emphasis on probability and numbers and general confusion. And one of the major ideas I think I have is that Hakari should have a critical hit chance on all of his attacks, whether he's in base or in jackpot. Now, hear me out. The reason I say this is because what's Hakari's biggest issue? He can only throw hands. So if his hands aren't effective on you, then he loses. However, that's the same issue that someone like Kashimo has. But what does Kashimo have? He doesn't have a probability setup, but he does have a way to drastically exceed his AP with his lightning pull. So what would be a great way to parallel these two fighters? Give Hakari something that's lightning bolt-esque. Notably, I'm not saying give Hakari a projectile, or actually he already does have projectiles. I'm not saying give Hakari like literally just a lightning bolt. Don't do that. But like, let's say, you know how he has a, I believe a 236 chance to get domain? Give him a 1 in 236 chance to land a critical hit. And critical hit could mean a couple of things in this scenario. It could literally just mean like he kind of gets a black flash built in, but it can't be as powerful as a black flash. Let's say it really is just like 2 times. Instead of raising it to 2.5 times, because obviously then like, what's the point of having black flash? So probably give it like a 2 times multiplier, or wherever you think it would be viable, where he could actually do some serious damage. Because look at, once again, comparing it directly to Kashimo, he was able to like swing mostly even with jackpot Hakari, but he wasn't actually able to like mark him up all that much. But once he hit a lightning bolt, that was like extreme amount of damage. So whatever you think the multiplier is on Kashimo's regular attacks versus the lightning bolt, slap the exact same multiplier on Hakari's critical hits. And just like with Hakari's domain, how there are secret hidden probabilities to it, let the same thing be with Hakari's critical hits. So say like Hakari would know that on his 5th hit, he's gonna get a critical. So like he's gonna swing, and then he's gonna kick, and that'll do extreme amounts of damage. Do I think it should like blow portions of limbs off? Maybe. I'm not exactly sure. Once again, it's the power balancing of it. But considering that, you know, Hakari, we're trying to amp him here, I think that would be fine enough. Like, let him actually be able to do some serious damage with any of these crits. And have him, once again, fitting into the whole idea on how Hakari controls his own luck, let him control it. So say Hakari doesn't want to, like, critical hit somebody and execute them with a critical hit, then he, like lightly taps them or something like that. Like, he knows when the critical hit's coming, and let's say he's going to be like, boop, he's going to like flick you, and the flick is still going to do extreme amounts of damage because it's multiplied, but it's not going to be like as devastating as a punch or a kick would. So it's always like a consistent mix-up whenever you're fighting Hakari. And the same thing you can do is add this ability to the doors and to the balls, because the big thing is, we see in the Kashimo fight that Hakari doesn't even use those. They're like literally worthless. But hypothetically, to give Hakari the projectile that he needs, one of actual decent power, what we would do is we would add the critical hit effect to those two. And we already see in the domain explanation that there are levels to the balls. Like, you have the regular ball, the second regular ball, and the third regular ball. And then those balls, once again being random for the most part, could come out when Hakari needs them, and they can have various levels of a crit chance to them as well. So you could hypothetically get hit with a regular ball and everything would be fine. It wouldn't even do too much. But then if a regular ball lands a crit, it could do the level of the damage that the gold ball would. And if you get hit with a gold ball and the gold ball lands a crit, once again, you're losing like a portion of your body. You need to RCT that bad boy up, or you just lost that portion of your body. So we can have this system where Hakari, once again, doesn't just have to rely on pure fisticuffs when in jackpot or even in base. He can actually rely on these lesser things, and now it makes every single fight with Hakari ever more dangerous. Because sure, fighting Hakari already is pretty dangerous, because, you know, letting the man get infinite curse energy and natural RCT of literally nearly the highest level is a little bit buku bonkers. But imagine now when you fight Hakari, you don't only have to worry about his regular hits, which are going to do a decent chunk of damage. You also have to worry that this man is randomly going to crit you. This is almost essentially like Hero from Smash Bros. Essentially his crit chance, like most of Hero's attacks don't crit. But one of them smash attacks, on occasion, it's happened to the best of us. If you played more than 10 games against Hero, you've been accidentally or like improperly crit. Like you would have lived the hit if it wasn't a crit, but we need to have that situation for Hakari, because then that makes Hakari dangerous and viable against anybody. Because now, even if he's not doing too much damage to you in his regular state and or too much damage to you in his jackpot state, at any point you can get snuck, you can get overconfident, and bam, suddenly your whole torso's gone, or bam, suddenly your whole like entire heads blown off. Like that'd be a little bit too much. I don't think Hakari would ever do that, but still that could be in the cards. But if you think the crit system is a little bit too much, right, like hypothetically giving him a massive boost in damage perfectly randomly is a bit too much, then we could do another thing with the probability and keep it more so within the gambling scheme, and that's adding a mischance for his opponent. Another big issue that Hakari mainly has in matchups where his opponent can kind of just like throw things at him from a long range, and that Hakari can't really get close. Like hypothetically against someone like Kenjaku, for an example, if Kenjaku were to just spam Cursed Spirits in Hakari's general direction, then usually that'd kind of just be it. Like Hakari could never get through, even if they're all fodder. Just the fact that Kenjaku has thousands upon thousands of Cursed Spirits and Hakari has a limited jackpot timer, if Kenjaku's really worried about Hakari's strength, just and they would all land, because there's no reason they wouldn't. Kenjaku's a master strategist, unless they would all land, and then Hakari would just get swarmed until his jackpot runs out. And or if someone tries to just like spam him out, like say he's fighting Ryu or something like that, and Ryu just keeps blasting him from far away and Hakari can't get close, then Hakari can't get close because all the attacks are going to keep hitting unless he's actively dodging them. But what is a big aspect of gambling, at least from what I know of gambling? You can miss a jackpot. You can miss your success. You can put money in and proceed to lose it. That's one of the biggest reasons I fear gambling. So what would be a great way to fit within the gambling motif and not make Hakari too broken? Give every single chance that an opponent has to hit him a mischance. Once again, it can be really, really rare. It can fit within that 1 in 236 chance that he has set up already with his domain, but now it's everything. You could be like close quarters with Hakari, and for some reason, like it'll literally be like a glitch. Like straight up, you go to hit him dead in the face, and your fist kind of just like phases through, or it gets redirected or something like that, and then Hakari lands a free hit on you. That would be a good way for him to deal with like projectile spammers, ironically enough. Once again, I go back to Smash comparisons, but I don't know if y'all have ever played a Belmont before, whether it be Simon or Richter, but it gets extremely annoying that they can just throw projectiles at you all over the place, and thusly it'll keep you out, especially if you're just like me, aka a Roy player, and get extremely sick of people throwing projectiles at you. Imagine if at random one of those projectiles could just whiff, like it would straight go through you, something like that. Giving Hakari that chance, once again playing into the whole jackpot mindset, would be great. It would give him a really annoying ability. It'd be super annoying to fight him, especially if he could once again manipulate the probability just a little bit. Turn that 1 in 236 chance into like an instant 1 in 10 or a 1 in 5 or a 50-50 really. If he can like raise the probability. Because once again, Hakari is the house. He makes the rules, even if it's like binding vows and set up stuff like that. We've specifically seen that bro can cheat fate a little bit. Like, yeah, he's an extremely lucky man, but he's also an extremely smart man. So imagine he starts raising those probabilities. So you try to run away and you try to throw attacks and trying to keep him at bay, and he's still going through. Like, imagine if one of Kashimo's bolts just missed. Like straight up, the 1 in 286 chance procs, and this was a bolt that was about to do major damage to Hakari. This one may have literally just taken his head off, but it just goes straight through his neck. Like straight through, and not in the way that it went through his torso and his torso still got destroyed. No, like it went straight through, and Kajima was like, huh? And then he gets punched in the mouth. That's what I'm talking about. Give that mischance to it, and not only do you get to keep the gambling aspect as a part of his curse technique, but you also get to give him an ability that would allow him to deal better with a lot of people who are more hacked out than him. And sure, he's still gonna have the basic problem that would be lacking if he doesn't have a critical hit system, because like he still wouldn't be able to do damage to certain people, and or like his fisticuffs just wouldn't work and they'd be able to stall him out. But giving base Hakari and jackpot Hakari the ability to force their opponents to miss, whether it be in like the weird spatial hacks way where like they kind of just phase through him, and or like just randomly their body disobeys them and they miss, that would be great. I think it'd be really, really good, and would allow Hakari just a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more of a matchup. But another thing I do want to do is make use of more domain elements in the real world. I really like the idea that Hakari can use the doors and the balls outside. It's just that he doesn't because they're so weak. And obviously you could use the critical hits to compensate for that. You could use the, not necessarily the missing chance. You don't want Hakari to suddenly get a missing chance. So let's not do that for him. I don't think he would want that. That'd be a little bit too dumb. But hypothetically, another aspect of the domains that I want to use are the different people on the numbers. Notably, I don't get the reference. Because I just don't, I'm sorry, I just don't get the reference. If it's a reference to something, I don't get it. But those characters could be used really interestingly to diversify Hakari in a really indirect way. The two previous things had different effects. The first one, the critical hit idea, was to simply make Hakari stronger and give his projectiles more viability. The second mischance idea was to make Hakari even more annoying to fight, so you didn't have to only get through his regen, but you had to get through the chance that at random, your maximum or your domain sure hit effect could just miss. But this final one would just be making Hakari really confusing to fight. Kind of like how it's really confusing to try and explain his domain and or really gamble properly. It's not an easy thing from what I heard. If it was easy to gamble, everybody would do it, but it isn't. So what's the best way to make use of these things? Well, I think a good idea to make Hakari's domain well, not just domain, but make Hakari more viable is that he can spawn the people from his domain as light constructs. But very specifically, they have a certain effect to them. They are not tangible. They are not real. They can't hit you. Don't worry, the people, that guy with the guitar on his back, he's not gonna come out of nowhere and beat you over the head with a bass guitar. That's not going to happen. However, what it will seem like is that Hakari is there, and Hakari is there, and Hakari is there, and Hakari's behind you, and Hakari is inside you. Like, legitimately, one of the biggest things that we know in Jujutsu Sorcerer world is that you rely a lot on your senses. Like, a lot. Like, to the point where fighting Toji and Maki, just in general, is really rough, because they break the fundamentals. Like, they have no idea how to be perceived because of how complicated their structure is. And by complicated, I mean, they really just don't have cursed energy, so you can't tell what they're gonna do, or even if they're there most of the time, because they're so quick, quiet, and speedy. But for Hakari, instead of doing or beating sensory abilities by literally just being without the sensory or being without something that can be sensed, the opposite. Have Hakari overwhelm senses and confuse people by letting the light constructs he spawn have cursed energy. And I ain't talking about just a little bit. I ain't talking about a chunky bit. I ain't even talking about a lot. If Hakari's in jackpot and he spawns one of those things, then bada bing bada boom, that's another thing with infinite cursed energy, or at least that's what it feels like it's a false high. Like, you know how people, they always say in casinos, let you win just a little bit so you don't know how much you're losing. That's the same thing here. You get to win a little bit because you're like, wait a minute, oh, there's a hit over there. You turn and you look, and then there's just a light construct standing there striking a pose, and then Hakari punches you in the mouth, and or he starts spawning a bunch of them. Preferably the limit would be like 3, fitting the whole 3 slots thing, but still, you run that, or you could do 9, because, it goes 1 through 9. Regardless, you could do something like that, and then that's how Hakari starts to mix you up. So say you're spamming projectiles, and Hakari, being Hakari, would leave one behind as a fake out and then charge around. So you're sensing the cursed energy run towards you, but you're also sensing infinite cursed energy popping up everywhere. So Hakari could spawn them within a limited range. I don't think he'd be able to spawn one halfway across a football field or something like that, but enough that it would be confusing. So you're in the middle of fighting Hakari and suddenly he's like, okay, your turn. And then you feel something with infinite cursed energy behind you, and it could even he could even make it strike different poses. Like, it's about to punch or it's about to kick or something like that. And then the opponent turns and it's just like a light construct there, and then Hakari punches them in the mouth. Once again, keeping the fundamentals of Hakari, trying to fit within his domain status and the gambling idea, you give him an ability that allows him to catch his opponents off guard, to play with them, to gamble with them, if you will, because it's a gamble. They could take note of the thing with infinite cursed energy behind them, overflowing, or they could keep fighting Hakari. That's the gamble. That's the 50-50. Are you betting on red or are you betting on black? And in this case, if you bet on red, you're going to keep fighting Hakari. But if you don't, you're going to keep fighting Hakari because he's going to keep fighting you. That's the other thing. I think in tiers of brokenness, I think number 1 is going to be the critical hits. I think that's my favorite idea of it because it really implements an aspect I think that would be unique to Hakari and not entirely unique to the verse, and also sort of give him once again, an ability to bypass, you know, the impossible wall that is the inherent nature of outputs being predetermined by one's birth. And then obviously the mischance would just be annoying, though the limit in the balance is that, once again, it's not guaranteed. Hakari may be able to guess when you're about to miss, so he may be able to read you or bait you into firing a massive attack and burning a whole bunch of cursed energy, and then you whiff, and then he hits you anyway. Maybe, but still, it's not actually guaranteed. And then the lowest obviously would be the light. I think the light constructs are just like a really interesting one you could use, or you could even make them hard light constructs. Like Hakari could literally beat you with them. Like, he literally picks one of them up and just, bam, like, slams you over the head. But who knows? That may be a little bit too broken. I'm trying to, like, offer ideas at least, because Hakari's lack of diversity really is his biggest weakness. It really is it. If he can't punch you, then he loses. And I don't think that's good enough for the man who's supposed to be surpassing Satoru Gojo, the man who was put in the same breath and caliber as Yuta Okotsu, the Axe Lord. Like, I think if we're gonna make Hakari a goat, make Hakari a beast, we give him a couple extra abilities. However, that's what I think. Please, what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think that all my abilities are dumb? Do you think Hakari doesn't need to be buffed? Do you have your own abilities or ideas that you could give to Hakari to make him buff that are different from my own? Which one is your favorite out of the 3 ones I offered? Please tell me all that and more in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure the notifications so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also I do a Patreon below. Each result as one double exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as 3 month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Attack on the Pencil, writing off.